Today I'm going to teach you how to make fire from particles. It's going to look something like this when we are finished. Right? And what we are going to do to make this, it's more than just particles. We're going to be using Particle System 2, Turbulent Displace, Colorama, Glow, and Fast Blur. Okay, so to start with this, I am going to add the effect of the particle, which is Particle Systems 2, which is this guy. All right, and I'm going to change this around just right from the start by I am going to change the physics from explosive animation to fire. It's going to give us up and down. I'm going to change the position down a little bit, right? And perhaps maybe I'll make the longevity a little bit shorter so we can have the particle interact here. This is going to be the size of our fire. Right? Next thing I'm going to do is actually change this to a shaded faded sphere so I have this thing going on. Right? Now, in order for Colorama to work, we have to change the birth color to white and death color to black because Colorama works off luminance of whites and blacks. Right? So this is the start of our fire. Okay, we will make changes through this as we work on. Okay? So the next effect we are going to add is something called Turbulent Displace, which is an effect under Distort. And what this does is that it's going to make whatever we put it on kind of wavy, right? So what we can do is, and we have all kinds of selections that we could use, right? For the stars, I'm going to try Turbulent Smoother. And what I'm going to do is adjust the amount to something low on size, right? Maybe something like around 20. Okay, and then something kind of higher on amount, like around 70 or so, right? So we got this thing. This is already starting to look a little bit more flame-like. Okay, now we're going to animate this effect by animating, just to show you what we're going to animate, we are going to animate things like the evolution, where we're going to move that a lot, right? If we're doing 6 seconds of fire, maybe we'll do like a full clock turn of it, so it starts to get even a little more wavier, right, to emulate what fire does. And then we are going to have the offset, where we are going to animate the Y, okay, to go up, so it moves a lot, right? Once again, we're just trying to get some sort of fire looking animation where everything's kind of moving at random, right? So far this is looking pretty good, I think. Okay, this is looking about where we want it. We could take the complexity up a little bit, maybe to 3, and that's going to give it more detail about what the flames are actually going to look like. Sometimes too much complexity is a little too much. It starts to look kind of expressionistic or something. Okay, so we can adjust as it goes along, but as we get there, that's fine. It's kind of best to throw these elements on and then fine tweak them once we have them. Next, I'm going to add the color to it, so let's add the Colorama, which we know from our fractal assignment from Digital Effects 1. Let's go ahead and go down to fire. Fire and smoke I think looks kind of bad. We may want to use it. I think just fire gives it a nice little tangy color here, right? Now I think there's I think this is looking good. We may want more brightness at the bottom, in which case we can go back to our particles here, and we can add things like birth size. We can make that like a little bigger, right? That could help. Death size we can make a little smaller if we wanted to, right? And that can get us a little more where we're wanting it. Right, another thing we can do to really add that up too would be doing things like, let's see, change this closer, which is something that we may want to do. Maybe we want the longevity a little bit longer. Perhaps maybe deal with things like gravity. And can also go into changing the particles too to get different looking colors that we want, right? Sometimes though, before we even get to here, let's just keep it with this for the time being. Let's go ahead and continue to make this fire-like, right? By adding glow. Okay, glow is under stylize. I already have it pulled up here. I'm going to throw this on here. And this is going to help make the yellows hot, right? And we can deal with this by changing things like threshold, how hot we want to make it look. Fire tends to glow quite a bit, right? But we can change this around, definitely, however we see fit. And then finally, we need to add something to take away from all this sharpness to make it look a little more real. We're going to need some sort of blur, all right? I really like fast blur myself, where we can just take it just a little bit, right? And we're starting to see some semblance of fire. Now we can go back to the particle here, and we can change this to, sometimes star looks pretty good. Line looks different, right? Sometimes these polygons look pretty good too, depending on how you look like. Some of them start to look cartoony. Okay, but depending on what type of fire you want it to look like, you can try any and all of these. And of course we can adjust the birth size and the death size to have the colors that we want and the size that we want. I think that's looking pretty good there. And then we can change also things like turbulent displace. We can change stuff like the size, right? Where we could get different looking, the way this thing's going to look as far as the fire goes. Right? Would be another way of doing it. And of course animating into something more realistic. Okay, we could also do something like we could change the type of animation, like perhaps maybe twist might look a little bit better as well for the turbulent displace. Okay, what else can we look? We could actually deal with the colorama a little bit by making it seem a little more light, by maybe taking out some of these darker colors and pushing them over. So you can see we're going to start making it more fiery yellow at the bottom. Okay, now once we get this thing rendered, as you'll see, it moves pretty fast. Right? So perhaps maybe something that we have to do is actually slow down the entire composition, right? Or speed it up. Currently my composition's at 61%, so it is actually moving pretty slow right now. Whereas if we were at 100%, as you can see, this is what the composition would look like. Which is moving pretty fast, right? So once again, if we take the time to slow it down a little bit, right? And I think mine was right at, 250 or so. This will give a more natural looking fire once it renders. And that's how we are going to get a fire that looks a little more like this.